Yep, we're doing another supplemental episode. Again, this is kind of due to the fact that X books can be pretty dense, especially when you're dealing with a character like the one we're dealing with today, Legion, the focal point character of X-Men Legacy.
I mean, we're talking about Charles Xavier's illegitimate son, whose mutant ability stems from the fact that he suffers from dissociative identity disorder, aka multiple personalities.
David Haller was first mentioned in the New Mutants issue number 25, and yes, he is the son of Charles Xavier and a woman named Gabrielle Haller, who Xavier met while doing aid work in Israel. The two entered a relationship, and when the relationship ended, Xavier did not know Haller was pregnant.
When David was still a child, he was confronted by a group of terrorists in the midst of an attack. The trauma of the attack caused David's X gene to activate, and he absorbed the mind of the group's leader and several others. This caused David's mind to completely fracture, and it would render him catatonic. David was then transported to a special facility on Muir Island, underrun by Moira McTaggart.
The fracturing of David's mind caused his mutant abilities to bestow powers on all the personalities that would appear, even the ones he absorbed.
David would eventually come out of his vegetative state. Unfortunately, it was because the entity known as the Shadow King had possessed him. While under the demon's control, David killed the mutant prophet known as Destiny. This would attract the attention of Destiny's longtime lover, Mystique. Mystique then came after David for revenge. After the encounter, David emerged with his mind seemingly attacked and a new personal mission: help Charles Xavier realize his dream of a human mutant utopia. Unfortunately, his idea on how to achieve this dream was to travel back in time and kill Xavier's rival, Magneto. David attacked Magneto in a manner that revealed the existence of mutants to the public than was earlier than originally happened. Also, David tried to kill Magneto, but Xavier leapt into the path of fire. David wound up killing his own father. David's actions resulted in the alterations to the timeline that allowed the mutant tyrant Apocalypse to ascend to power and take over control of the world in a storyline called The Age of Apocalypse.
And in case you're wondering, no, I have absolutely no intentions on covering Age of Apocalypse in this show. That storyline is 51 issues long. Even if I divided it up into parts, we're still talking about a month and a half to 2 months worth of work just to do the whole story justice.
The Age of Apocalypse ended when the time-traveling mutant Lucas Bishop managed to return to the past and stab David with Legion's own Psyblade. This allowed David to see the damage he was causing to the timeline. David wasn't killed, though. He was held in captivity until a reformed group of new mutants discovered him. However, it turned out that his multiple personalities had returned. Through the efforts of New Mutant members Karma and Magic, David's alternate personas were able to be held in check. It was at this point that Charles Xavier stepped in and began working with his son to better control his abilities and identities.
Well, Xavier was involved up to a certain point. You see, to talk about that, we need to kind of cover the X-Men storylines that were leading into Legacy. So let's just go on to our second part. Now, if you recall my review of the House of M storyline, then you know that that event left almost all of the mutant population of the Marvel Universe suddenly powerless.
The mutant population of the Marvel Universe was effectively put into a crisis state, with many wondering if the Scarlet Witch's actions would even prevent the birth of any new mutants into the population.
The question on whether or not there would be a new mutant in the Marvel Universe would be answered in a storyline called Messiah Complex. Now, understand, in order to save some time here, I'm going to try to cover as many high points in these storylines as possible, but I will be leaving some parts out.
Hank McCoy, aka the Beast, managed to use the mutant-detecting supercomputer Cerebra to discover a newborn mutant living in Alaska. A battle over the young mutant's future broke out between the X-Men and longtime foes, the Marauders, Magneto's old acolytes, the Cybernetic Reefers, and the religious Purifiers. Also, there was a being known as Predator X involved.
Now, all of these groups are fighting over a young, red-haired mutant girl with psychic abilities. And yeah, that led many fans to believe this would be a resurrected Jean Grey. However, this would prove to be a misdirect, and the girl would instead wind up being named Hope.
Along the way, X-Men member Lucas Bishop turned on the team under the belief that Hope would be the mutant responsible for his dystopian future. However, another time-traveling mutant, Cable, took Hope and ran off into the future with Bishop in hot pursuit.
Now, a lot of the events of this story really caused Cyclops to begin to sour on Xavier's dream, and Cyclops would then wind up relocating the X-Men to San Francisco. Meanwhile, Cable and Hope continue to travel out through various points of time and trying to avoid Bishop. Eventually, they would cross paths with the X-Men again in a storyline called Second Coming.
Like I said, Cable and Hope returned to present-day San Francisco. Their return came in the midst of another attack on mutant kind by the Purifiers. Also, their return sparked the interest of the Purifiers after they realized who Hope was. X-Men member Nightcrawler was killed protecting Hope as a group of new breed Sentinels called Nimrods began attacking. Cable used his last time-jumping technology to take a team of X-Force into the future as part of a plan by Cyclops.
Now, this incarnation of X-Force was a mutant group created by Cyclops that would seek out, hunt down, and take out potential threats to mutant kind. And in this case, they're actually being sent into the future to take out the Master Mold, which is the machine that creates the Nimrod Sentinels.
Cable and X-Force locate and destroy the Master Mold machine that was creating the Nimrod Sentinels. They then discover a time portal that the Nimrods were using to travel back. Unfortunately, the portal burned all organic matter that entered it. Eventually, Cable sacrificed himself to hold the portal open while the remaining X-Force members found a way to return back home.
Now, at the end of the story, it was revealed that 5 new mutants had been discovered. However, it was also revealed that the relationship between Cyclops and the other X-Men was really getting strained at this point, and the extent of that strain will be covered in the next storyline, Schism.
Cyclops spoke to the United Nations about the discontinuation of all Sentinel programs, only for it to be interrupted by an attack by a new breed of Sentinels, this one's being constructed by longtime mutant secret society, the Hellfire Club. This happens as the 5 new mutants discovered at the end of Second Coming arrive at the X-Men compound. The new students are taught by Wolverine, who is actually trying to still pursue Xavier's dream of a mutant utopia. It's then that the Hellfire Club attacked, and Cyclops ordered one of the new 5, named Oya, to kill a group of Hellfire Club soldiers. Oya acquiesces to Cyclops' demands, and Wolverine is left even more upset. Wolverine and Cyclops clash over their diverging personalities, only putting their differences aside long enough to defeat the Hellfire Club. Afterwards, Wolverine breaks away with a few of the others.
Wolverine would wind up moving back to New York and founding the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. And yes, I am aware that it sounds so strange saying that Wolverine was the one doing this. In a special one-issue story, the cosmic hero Nova came to Earth to announce that the Phoenix Force was coming on its way. It would eventually be discovered that the Phoenix Force was trying to bond with Hope, and this led the X-Men into a conflict with the Avengers. The X-Men believed that they wanted Hope protected in order for the Phoenix Force to bond with her and thus fulfill her role as savior of the mutant race. The Avengers did not want the Earth destroyed. And this would lead into the last storyline we need to cover, Avengers vs. X-Men.
Eventually, all of the arguing between the two super teams causes Hope to run away. Both the X-Men and the Avengers manage to track her down. The confrontation between the two teams is interrupted by the arrival of the Phoenix Force. It's then that Iron Man fires a specially constructed disruptor ray at the alien entity. However, instead of killing the Phoenix, the entity is simply split into 5 parts. Those 5 parts of the Phoenix Force wind up being bonded with Cyclops, Emma Frost, Namor, Magic, and Colossus. The Phoenix Five, as they come to be called, then set about remaking the world in their own image. Even though much of the Five's efforts actually help humanity, both humans and mutants, the Avengers agree that the group has to be stopped. They manage to talk Hope into coming with a certain group of members to the ancient city of Kunlun.
And yes, I am aware of the role that the city of Kunlun plays in the origin of the martial arts hero Iron Fist. We just don't really have time to cover that right now.
Over time, the bond between the Phoenix Five begins to break. Namor, Colossus, Magik, and Emma Frost all get taken down either by each other or Cyclops. Eventually, Cyclops winds up possessing all of the Phoenix Force. As the power begins corrupting him, Cyclops is confronted by Charles Xavier. However, the attempt at a possibly redeeming Cyclops falls apart as the Dark Phoenix persona takes over, and Cyclops kills Charles Xavier.
It's then that Hope reappeared after receiving special training in Kunlun, and she would work in tandem with the Scarlet Witch to drive the Phoenix Force from Scott's body. Hope would then absorb the Phoenix Force and use it to restore the mutant population on Earth before simply wishing the entity away. However, Charles Xavier was still dead, and what effect would that have on his son, Legion? Well, we'll find out in the first story arc of X-Men Legacy.